Thank you so much for coming out tonight to the first of 9 meet and greets with the Acting Police Commissioner, Michael Harrison. My name is Shantae Guy, and I will be your facilitator tonight. While I had absolutely nothing to do with the schedule order, I am happy to say, as a Northwestern District resident, that I'm happy that the first meeting is here tonight. Before we begin, there are a few administrative and housekeeping items that I'd like to share with you. Simultaneous Spanish translation services are available for those who need it, and sign language services are available here to my left. There is a gender-neutral bathroom outside of these doors and on the left. To get to the gender-specific restrooms, you head out of these doors, down the hallway, make a right, and they are on your right. Smoking happens at least 20 feet away from the building. Tonight's an opportunity for all of us to get to know our new acting police commissioner better, and for him to hear your hopes and your concerns as it relates to policing our community. For those of you who signed up to speak tonight, listen for your names. I will call 5 names at a time so that folks can come up to the microphone and be ready to share their thoughts with us and with the acting police commissioner. When you come up to the microphone, please remind us of your name. Tell us what neighborhood you live in. Whether it's Park Heights, West Arlington, Bel Air Edison, Sandtown, we want to know where you're coming from. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak. When your 2 minutes are up, you will hear my phone send off a sounder. If you have a question, but would prefer not to ask it at the microphone, feel free to write your question down, raise your hand, and a City Hall staff member will bring the question to the front. In addition to the PC, we are joined tonight by Major Brickus, Captain Loeffler, and Neighborhood Collaboration Officers Jenkins and Perfetto of the Northwestern District. We are also joined by a few others in the Baltimore Police Department. With the administrative things out of the way, please join me in welcoming Mayor Catherine Pugh to the podium.
First, good evening, everyone. So good to see such a good turnout this evening. As you all know, this is the first of 9 public hearings throughout the city, and I'm really grateful that so many of you have turned out. Let me just also say thank you, Shantae, for emceeing this event. And we have members of the City Council that are here. Are you going to introduce the members of the City Council? I'll let her introduce the members of the City Council, but I have to introduce the President of the City Council, Jack Young. I guess I should do the Vice President, too. Vice President Sharon Middleton. I'll let her introduce the rest of the City Council. We have our chairs of both of the committees, and the 5th District is also here. So again, you all, thank you for turning out. This is an opportunity for you all to get to know a little bit more about our commissioner. I'd also like to introduce his wife, CC. Would you stand up, CC Harrison? CC, thank you for joining us. They are now Baltimore City residents, and we're excited. I asked the commissioner this morning how he felt with the snow. I'm sure it was a little shocking to him. But as he said, while we may see many of the things that are happening in our city as challenges, he sees it as an opportunity. And that's a great thing. He is ready to move forward, and so are we. But again, he wants to hear from you. This is not just us telling you about him or him telling you about himself, but it is an opportunity for him to hear from you. And as Shantae has said, please, when you come up to the mic, identify your neighborhoods or your organization that you belong to, because that would be helpful as well. So again, looking forward to hearing from you all, and let's have a great evening. Thank you again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm going to take this time to acknowledge Councilman Robert Stokes and Councilman Brandon Scott. Next, we'll hear from City Council Vice President, Councilwoman Sharon Green. I'm sorry? the two of them are actually coming up in a second. That was the introduction that was coming. Next, we'll hear from City Council Vice President, Councilwoman Sharon Green Middleton, and from Councilman Yitzi Schleifer, I'm sorry. You both want to come up?
Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for taking your time to come out at this very important meeting. As you know, I represent a big part of the Northwest area, and I'm so happy that the mayor picked this area as the first meeting. I just happened to have my first one-on-one tomorrow morning, so we will dialogue and discuss some of the things that you will hear tonight. I have been off and on with and met Commissioner Harrison early this morning at the press conference, and he also attended our meeting before our council meeting and introduced himself to all the council members, just really shared about, things about himself and some of his plans, and I'm just so anxious to, and I'm sure you are too. We have a lot of, Commissioner, we have a lot of concerns here in the Northwest area, very diverse. But I do just want to put in a plug. At our council meeting this evening, we honored 9 elevated females in the police force. And in fact, our Northwest major couldn't attend because she's been hard working over here in the Northwest, but it has been 9 female, African-American females that were elevated to high positions. So we thought it, because this was Black History Month, that it was a good thing to just honor these 9 women. And also we just did a blurb about, as you all know, or most of you know, in 2018, the mayor and myself and Jack kind of rebooted the Women's Commission. So all of this plays a good role in what I'm sure your plans are in trying to get more people in the police force. So again, I don't want to hold you any longer. I now have my colleague here that represents the 5th District.
Good evening, everybody. Come on, a little more excitement than that. This is an exciting day for us. Let's try that again. Thank you, Shorty. So I'd like to welcome all of you to the 5th District. It's great to have all of you here. I'll echo Shantae's sentiments that I too am very excited and happy that the first one happened to fall out to be in the Northwest and in the district here. I would like to welcome Commissioner Harrison to Baltimore. We are very excited to have you here. We need you here. And as you can see, even with the weather the way it is, we still have a large group of people who braved the weather and braved the ice and came out because this is extremely important to all of us. I also want to recognize my colleague who just walked in, Councilman Pinkett. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the 5th District. You're always welcome to come back anytime you'd like. Without further ado, I'll turn it back over to Shantae. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman and Councilman. So in the next 10 minutes, we're going to hear directly from our new acting commissioner. We're going to leave it to him to introduce himself and allow you to get better acquainted with him. And after we hear from him, then we'll turn it over to you all. So, PC?
Thank you, Shantae. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being out here, especially in this inclement weather. And certainly thank you, Mayor, for having great confidence in me and offering me this position. It's a wonderful opportunity that I gladly accept. Thank you to all of our council members, Mr. President, and to all of our council members. Thank you. I look forward to working with all of you in each of your respective districts and coming to meet with you all this week and next week to talk about all the issues that I know that are important to you and to the members of your constituency. Thank you to my wife for giving up everything a great career also to join me on this journey. We appreciate it. Thank you. We appreciate it. And so, we've been married for going on 27 years. We actually met when she was 13 and I was 15. It wasn't a crime. Back then, we lived like next door to each other and kind of met young, dated through high school, and have been together ever since. So thank you for always being on this journey with me. Wonderful 28-year, 27 and a half, going on 28-year career in the New Orleans Police Department. Joined in 1991 at the age of 21. Worked through a number of assignments, worked in the hardest, toughest, most challenging police districts. Certainly, we all know what the 90s were like in American policing. Worked my way up, did a lot of undercover work in the mid-90s at the height of the drug culture and epidemic in America. But one thing that's unique about me, and I'll move really quick through this, working undercover, I had the unfortunate opportunity to observe a lot of corrupt police officers within the police department. And every time I was out doing undercover work, I often find members of that department back then were on the wrong side. And I had no problem. And I told this to the chiefs and the command staff earlier today, because today I met with all the executive members of the department and the entire command staff. And I laid this out, that even then I had no problem putting bad cops away. My entire career. And so that led me to some work as an undercover police officer to take down an entire network of police officers in New Orleans, which got the attention of the chief and the mayor. And the chief then promoted me to sergeant, said, I need you to take that skill set and go work in internal affairs. And for the next 9 years, as a sergeant and a lieutenant, I worked in internal affairs doing the very same thing, rooting the New Orleans Police Department of its bad officers and making sure that we had high standards. That work got the attention of the chief, who promoted me again to commander and gave me assignments in narcotics, then later in the toughest, largest, most populated, heaviest crime district in the city, where I worked for 3 years and was able to reduce crime in that district for 3 years before getting the attention of the mayor, who promoted me over all the assistant chiefs to chief from the commander position because of that work. And for 4 years, I worked with Mayor Mitch Landrieu, where we worked to institute this consent decree, because I came in year 2 of that consent decree. After my predecessor, the previous chief, had 1 year, I came in the 2nd year, and the Department of Justice said about New Orleans then that the New Orleans Police Department was the most troubled police department in America. That's what they said about us. And so I took over that department in 2014 as the chief. Having that being said about our department, and the reality is it was true, because I grew up in that department and I saw it at its best, but I saw it at its worst. And I took that challenge on. We skipped over all the deputy chiefs to be the superintendent. And for 4 years I worked with that mayor's team, and we built a dynamic team of taking on the most troubled police department, taking on a community that had little to no trust in the department that had no trust in itself. And we worked over the 4 years with that mayor, changing all of that and changing the culture, the way the cops think about themselves, the way the community thought about us, the way we thought about the community, also saying that there is no distinction between a police department and the community. We are all part of the same community. We are not separate and apart from a community. We are the community we serve. So when we do things to harm the community, we're actually doing things to harm ourselves. And so that was our philosophy. And because we were in a consent decree, I told my team then, and I told my team today, we will never ever do anything in this department because a consent decree makes us do it. We will change, we will reform, we will get better because it is the right thing to do. The citizens pay for it, they deserve it, they expect it, and we do it because it is the right thing to do, not because somebody makes us do it. Yes, the consent decree is a federal mandate, but change is needed, so we will make the change because we need it and because it is the right thing to do. We want to get better because we deserve to be better. It's expected. You pay for it, you deserve it. That's what we're going to deliver to you. So then I was asked to remain the chief when the new mayor was elected in May of last year, who allowed me to remain the chief. And through the course of time, God works in mysterious ways. We had a great year of violence reduction. Citizen satisfaction went way up. Consent decree compliance came almost to the end where that department is now almost about to exit this year. And then I get a call from this mayor with a very compelling argument to think about what we had done in New Orleans and what the next steps of my career would be. And as I reflected on it and thought about the work we had done, the blessings I have, the support of my wife and family, my 2 kids are now grown. My son is 25, a young lawyer. My daughter's 21, a senior in college who lives away. Perfect opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity. So here I am. So I commit to you that the lessons learned in New Orleans, the strict discipline which brings about culture change, creating systems and measures of accountability that holds people accountable at every level, creating professional development for members of the department at every level so that leaders can create more leaders. And that our goal over time is, as we create leaders and create systems of accountability that lets me know who did things and when they did it and why they did it, who knew about it when, and what did they do about it when they found out about it. And then holding people accountable when they did not do the right thing. 3 things you can do. You can do the wrong thing, you can do the right thing, or you can do nothing. I want to know about it. The systems of accountability will let us know. Certainly there's a technology piece that we have to build to bring us up into the 21st century so that we can know those things and those systems can work efficiently and effectively. But it is about creating good supervisors, good managers, and good leaders. 3 distinct things that are one and the same sometimes, but they're 3 distinct things. And we want to make sure we create the best department that you pay for, expect, and deserve. That is my mission, that is my goal, that is my directive from this mayor, and we will deliver on that. It will take time, but we will deliver on that. Tonight, the next 9 nights, 8 nights, we'll be hearing from you. I want to hear your concerns. You can ask me questions, but I want to hear your concerns. Please tell me your name. If you don't mind, please tell me your address. We want to respond back to you. If you don't want to give that to us, that is perfectly okay. If you don't give us your address, please give us the name of your neighborhood and then tell me what the issue is. I'm here to listen. Our team is here to listen. If there are any questions or anything that is really pointed and really directed to a specific location, date, or time, I'm going to ask my commander or assistant commander to take that question, and I will connect you with them so that they can handle that issue, and then we can forward and we can respond to you, reply to you, satisfy that issue, and then communicate back to you what we did about it. Tonight's really about you. I want to hear from you. Certainly, there will be a plan. Certainly, there will be plans of action. But tonight is about listening. The next 8 nights are about listening. And then it will be about finding out what we need and who we need. And then figuring out who has the correct skill sets to join this team to lead this department into what we want it to be. And that will be the greatest police department in America. And then my vision and goal for this department before I take my seat is that when it's all done, people from around the country will come to the Baltimore Police Department and hire people to go be the chief in their city. Absolutely. All right? At this time, I'll hear from you.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Harrison. As he mentioned, now it's time to hear from you all. When I call your name, please form a line at the microphone. Share your hopes, your concerns, and your issues with the police commissioner about what's going on in your community. Remember to introduce yourself and to tell us what neighborhood you live in. The first 5 names. Shorty is number 1. He got here 15 minutes after I did. Anthony Williams, Steve Ward, Glenetta White, and Crystal, I believe, Hennig. Remember that each person has about 2 minutes. And when you hear the timer go off, your time's up. Shorty, we're happy to start with you.
All right. My name Dwayne Davis. All right. That's for people that don't know that. But everybody call me Shorty. My question, I'm from Chicago. I came in straight out the penitentiary in 1991 on the Interstate Compact. So I live all over Baltimore. The war on drugs that you was talking about, 80s, 90s, things of that nature. All right, N62528. I turned in guns and drugs to the police at the police station. to end the war on drugs and the violence. The same way that you ended prohibition in the 30s, you as a police department, as long as you've been dealing with the war on drugs, do you ever see an end or a future with this war on drugs versus ending it with the murder and the death in the community? The reason I handed you them papers right there, on February the 7th, 2011, I was kidnapped by Scott Schellenberger and the Baltimore County Police Department because I was making a movie about what you talking about, the war on drugs, stop and frisk, zero tolerance. Mayor Pugh know about it, Jack Young know about it, you feel me? It was about the political machine that Governor O'Malley created, the mom machine, in which the dissent decree was created, stop and frisk and zero tolerance. That's the money behind the war on drugs. So you, knowing that the money is involved and the politics behind it, are you going to continue to go after Johnny on the corner? Or are you going to go after politicians too and white-collar criminals in Baltimore? Because if you just here to be another attack dog, we just got rid of 3 commissioners. We got rid of Davis, we got rid of Belfield, and we got rid of Batts. And they still get a paycheck. You going to do the same thing? We need to end the war on drugs. We need to address the violence in the community in which it comes from. Not just because you said you're making the community safe. The war on drugs is a detriment to our community. You've seen the 13th Amendment and you've seen the new face of old Jim Crow. If you don't address those issues in Baltimore, it's a dog and pony show.
Well, first of all, thank you for your question.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your question. We just met, but I feel like I've been knowing you my whole life.
I was the one you was chasing off the block.
But thank you for your question. First of all, I do see that there is hope and there could be an end to this drug thing, because there is a direct correlation between drugs, violence, and money, drugs, violence, money, and guns, and all of that is connected. However, we will always, as a police department, make sure that, number one, we're abiding by the law and we're abiding by best practices and policies. The policies of the 1990s, we have now found that they were not necessarily good policies. Sometimes they created more harm than good, and we're starting to see that now. What we want to do is make sure that we are working with other local, state, and federal agencies to make sure that we have good policies about enforcing our drug laws and to making sure that we do everything we can to go after individuals who are tied to violence, tied to drug sales, the proliferation of drugs, guns, money, and the violence that's associated with will always be our focus. And anybody who is committing a crime, when that information is brought to our attention, this department would take the appropriate action.
Anybody?
When it's brought to our attention and the evidence is there for us to do that, we will take the appropriate action.
That's all.
But the question was about drugs and violence.
We're talking about ending the war on drugs. It's been proven that when prohibition was going in effect and you ended prohibition, it stopped killing white kids. You stopped the white drive-bys. Now this war on drugs been going on for so long, all you've been doing is killing black people and calling black people the ones that deal it out. I joined the Navy in 1977. I got an honorably discharged veteran. That was during Iran-Contra. We brung them drugs here, man. We brung those drugs here. Our country brung those drugs here. We just a conversation.
Yep,
We're going to finish it. You time my 2 minutes, I ain't heard the buzzer.
So I turned the timer off because you finished.
I'm going to let him go, but I'll be at every event you got. I'm going to be first front. I'm going to be here.
I look forward to it.
We're looking forward to it. Thank you.
Next question. We as a police department will always work with our local, state, and federal agencies to making sure we're enforcing the law, but we're doing whatever it takes to make our citizens safe. And we will enforce the laws that we are charged to enforce here in the city of Baltimore.
Thank you. Next comment.
Hi, my name is Anthony Williams. It took me 55 years to get here. I always say that. Born and raised in East Baltimore. Homeless as a youth. I got my first beat down by the Baltimore Police Department when I was 15. I would not want to see that happen to any of our young people, whether they're squeegee kids on the corner, panhandling, or just being themselves in public places. I heard a lot about you through the media. I heard a lot about you talk about from news people, radio shows thereof, about quality of life, about the bell curve, about how the Giuliani administration cleaned up New York City. I just really, so east, north, south, and west, we have homeless people everywhere. On my way here, I saw an abandoned house, all boarded up. You've probably noticed the blight in the city of Baltimore. It's my beloved city, and I think criminalizing people for their activities that are pretty much just quality of life offenses should not be criminalized. I don't think that's an answer to the ills of our community, but I would say that investment in our communities is going to be a challenge because we need to invest in our young people in our communities. I hear gunshots. I live at 925 North Broadway, right next to John Hopkins. I hear gunshots.
Mr. Williams?
Yep.
We're just about at time, but I want to check in to make sure that we heard everything that you said so that we give the PC an opportunity to respond. So what I think I heard you say is looking for his perspective on the criminalization of homelessness,
Yes.
and what his intentions are around that space, and also interested in learning what his perspective is on engaging younger folks in our community.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Yes, you
Thank
did.
you so much. PC?
Thank you.
Very good point. Certainly, we do not advocate for criminalizing homelessness, and just today, in the meeting today, we were talking about programs that are dealing with eradicating homelessness here in Baltimore, and certainly working with a number of programs, both internal within the government and external with stakeholders. The mayor is leading an effort to deal and eradicate homelessness all over the city, and certainly the police department is not in a position, nor do we advocate criminalizing homelessness. And so we will work with the mayor's office in the city to do what's necessary to make sure we find the appropriate response that is not a criminalization.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Glenetta White. I just recently moved back to Baltimore, but I am born and raised here, went to school here, was educated here. But what I have to say is recently my mom just passed, so I had to move back from Virginia Beach. And in the few years that I've been here, a lot of things have changed. So what I'm interested in, I'm from the Howard Park community. I live in the 3700 block of Hillsdale, just 2 blocks over exactly. And I want to know what you think about community policing. Getting back to, as I remember, I have family members in Camden, New Jersey, and I remember they set it up as community policing. I think the relationship between the police and the public or the citizens are poor. And I think they should take the time and knock on doors and find out what the residents really care about and how they feel about their neighbors and how they feel about feeling safe. I think the police department does not take the time to really know by knocking on the doors of everyone. It should be a representative in every community that finds out and bring these things to you. How do you feel about community policing and stop them from sitting in the car with the light going around and they still see crime and people sitting on the corners of 45, 46, 700 block of Liberty Heights Avenue? It's constant. I mean, I had to buy a German Shepherd that's trained by y'all just to live here. I don't feel safe, but with him, I feel safe.
First of all, thank you for that. Community policing is at the center of what policing in America should be and will be in Baltimore. And I want to be clear. Community policing is by definition a philosophy. It is not a program. It's a way of thinking. It's a mindset. It is the way we go about interacting with our community to find out information and to do 3 things. And this is not the corporate definition, but this is my definition: to build relationships that we never built, to improve our good ones, and to repair our bad ones. That is the goal of every police officer: to build relationships that were never built, improve on good ones, and repair bad ones. And yes, it is our goal to always have the time to get out of the car, to walk through the neighborhoods, to get to know the neighbors. That was the philosophy over 100 years ago when Sir Robert Peel, the father of policing, created policing, to walk through neighborhoods to get to know the neighbors. That's coming back. Community policing as a philosophy has a number of initiatives. A walking beat is an initiative of the community policing philosophy, but it is labor and time intensive. What we have to do right now, because of a really serious manpower shortage. Right now, we're inundated with calls and inundated with work that require us to respond to the citizens' calls. And so if we got away from that, we would neglect the citizens' calls, many of which are emergencies. It is our goal now to find smart deployment strategies and smart initiatives to reduce officer burdens so that we can free up time to get back to the simple things like walking the beat, bicycle patrols, playground assignments, school assignments, where we can get to know the members of our community, our neighbors. That's coming back, but that's part of what we want to do. It's in the consent decree, but it is something we want to do because it's the right thing to do. And community policing should be the core of our policing strategy. Everything is surrounded around community
Well,
policing.
that's what I'd like to see from our commissioner.
You're going to see that.
Thank you so much, Ms. White. The next person is Crystal Hennig.
No. The next person is Steve Ward from Grove Park Community
Oh, thank you,
Association.
sir. You're correct. Thank you so much. Mr. Ward?
She stole my thunder because one of the things I was going to ask you about was community policing. And I'm very interested in hearing some of the techniques that you would like to use here in making sure that the citizens feel much better about police within the area. One of the things that I think is very important is that the police need to know about the streets within the area. I've had police come within my area and not even know my street. I live on Elderon Avenue, and many of them thought it was El Dorado. So, so that's one of the things that I think that we need to work on. Thank you.
Absolutely, and certainly you all, everybody can look forward to that. When we create deployment strategies, like I said, that free up time so that we can build in all the things that are missing that you are looking for, so that officers can get to know the citizens by name, citizens can get to know officers by name. When those relationships form, information begins to flow to the department about issues in the community and to the community about things within the police department. It does require time, and it requires a strategy that allows officers to be able to do that. And then we can track that with the department with what I call measures and systems of accountability to know what officers are doing it, how frequently are they doing it, and does it work? And then when we meet throughout the year, you can tell me, and then the perception of the community about the police begin to change, or it doesn't change, then I can go fix it. That's coming.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Crystal is now the next person that we have. I just want to make sure that we didn't miss her. Oh, you're saying pass. Got it. Thank you. So I'm going to call the next 5 names that come in behind you so that we can get folks in the line. So we've got Michael Johnson. We've got, I believe this is Gloria McGunn. Walter Horton. India Artis. And Alex McCamey. Thank you. We'll take the next comment.
Okay, he went back. I thought that someone was before me. I'm Michael Johnson. I'm just a citizen of Baltimore. It don't matter what neighborhood that I am. You know, one thing I have to comment that the mayor has made the possibility of being a police a very attractive thing at 51,000 plus a year. And I applaud you for that, Mayor, for doing that. The problem that I have is about recruitment. I just find that the police department is not recruiting throughout the state of Maryland. Many young black men, women, white folk in general from the state of Maryland don't really get a chance to see that opportunity. I'm not talking about a billboard on Monument Street, driving down the street to say you too can be. I'm talking about serious recruitment, because if you listen to the streets will tell you what's wrong with the city of Baltimore, and the way to get the street is to recruit from the street. We play games. We go all the way to Puerto Rico, Alabama, Tennessee, what was the last one we saw? Kentucky, to recruit officers that don't, not the point of not looking like me, because some of them look like me and still don't know me. There's a difference. So all I'm asking you to do is whomever it is that the mayor or you have that's recruiting ain't doing jack. They're not recruiting no one from the state of Maryland. They're making some substantial money to say that they are. But ask the community to assist. And the mayor, and I spoke about that a few minutes ago, to make sure that I make myself available and other people make themselves available. But if you don't recruit, and you don't recruit from the areas, and you don't put it out there, because this is the job that was left for folks that only need a high school diploma. Now, I got a degree on me, but it took a minute to make $51,000. And so here we have an opportunity for young men and young women of any nationality from the state of Maryland to join what you just said is going to be the best force in the state, and people will come from there, and how they will snatch our people and take them to commissioner. Well, respectively, I wish that they didn't have to bring you here, but you here. So I'm going to support you and give you everything that you need. But I promise you, if you falter and fail and lie and say something to the community that you're not doing, that you ain't going to do, this is not the face you're going to want to see.
Thank you,
but
Mr.
while
Johnson.
you're right. And I'll support you all the way. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
First of all, thank you for that, and that's all I can ask. Recruiting is a challenge here in Baltimore. It is a challenge nationwide. I can tell you that coming from New Orleans, it was.
You got to be able to really recruit.
Yes.
You got to say, this is a job you can do. You can't keep bringing people from Pennsylvania in here and think they're going to police me.
I got you.
And I'm sorry to cut you
I
off.
got you. It is a challenge nationally, and I'll make this one reference, and I won't make it about anything else. Even in New Orleans, where I just came from, 60% of every class was from out of state. Here's what's happening, and we were working to change that dynamic to recruit more from the city. There are issues that have happened nationwide that have made people not want to have an interest in this profession. It is happening in cities where people, because of the climate coming out of all the things, Ferguson, even here in Baltimore, Chicago, all of the issues around the country and so we are working and fighting against that. But it is our goal, working with this mayor and our recruitment team, to make sure we build a world-class, first-class recruiting initiative that, number one, goes after people who live right here in the city and in this region, to make sure we're hiring our own people to be part of the Baltimore Police Department. It is our commitment to do that. But we want to make sure that we can staff this department with the best individuals who have both the will and the capacity, the heart, mind, body, and soul, to be police officers for the city of Baltimore.
Thank you. Next comment?
My name is Glord McGuire. This is my community. Welcome to Howell Park community. I've been a president of this organization in this community for about 20 years. So we've been fighting to bring the police together to meet the elderly folks in the community. And it's been a hard job because as we build a relationship, some of the police officers, I was personally, and I'm still having problems with them, believe it or not. And I have filed papers in the Internal Affairs because of this particular incident that happened maybe about 7, 8 years ago. But it still affects my ability to try to bring the elderly and the police together. And when I went to Internal Affairs, they're going to tell me that the time has lapsed. Time has lapsed, but the problem had happened, so that's something that needs to be investigated. And the other problem is when we try to bring people together, when the police get the call, they have a tendency to come into the community, shine a light on a person's house, knock on the door, and go and ask them, did they call the police? And that's a no-no. So now a lot of people don't want to come to us with information because we are here to support. We should be a family helping each other. And for them to pull police out of the area after we build a relationship with, it's not good. And I heard you speak of your shortage. Me being in the Army Reserve, and I know that you have some good Army Reservists that knows how to police until you can get your numbers up, or the state, because that's the problem. I don't care where you're at. If you are working in a deficit, you're gonna have a problem and everything. But I like to see I like to see everybody come together as one, and for us to get together to know the community so the elderly can come back out and share information with us so we can share with the police. Okay?
Good point. Thank you for that. And I'm looking forward to making sure that we bridge those gaps and form those relationships just like you're talking about with the elderly, but with everybody. And so it will take all of us, and I'll be looking forward for you helping me find a way to do that, to find a way to create time to get our officers into your community so you can get to know them by name, so that the things you want to tell them or the things other people are telling you, that information can flow. And that only comes with relationship building. That's exactly what this administration is going to be working on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Next comment.
Walter Horton, concerned citizens of Forest Park, 4014 Kathleen Avenue. First and foremost, I want to commend the mayor and the council president and the council themselves for holding such a marvelous event. We pray that this is not the last time we hear from the commissioner in these type of forums. I know the previous mayors have had forums coming out to our communities, and we hope that type of dialogue, which you've already answered my question, will continue under your administration. One of the things that I really want to ask is very specific about the goals and objectives during this 5-year term. We have several issues that need to be addressed, and how confident are you to bringing those issues to fruition in that short period of time?
Well, first of all, thank you for that. And I'm open, willing, and able to do this as often as any community wants to do these kind of forums. I'm certainly happy to do that. So if the mayor or council members, anybody who wants to do this on a not every day, but fairly regular basis, I'm certainly willing to do that. I'm confident that we can accomplish this because what you're seeing now, I've been through. What you're seeing now, New Orleans went through. And the citizens of New Orleans felt just like you feel. Some of them felt worse. And the reality is I grew up in that department and I was a citizen and resident of that city. So even as a member of the department, I can honestly say I even felt some of it. And so I'm confident that I know how the officers feel. I know how to do this from an officer perspective, but from a leadership perspective. And with the help of this mayor, support of this mayor, this city council, this body of residents from this community and other communities around the city, together we can do it. So I'm totally confident. I'm totally confident that we can address the issues, but it will be all of us together. It will take time, but it will be all of us together. And I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Ms. Artis, before you make your comment, let me just call the next 5 folks behind you. So Alex McCamey, Mr. Dixon, Nicole Gatewood, Lydia Walther Rodriguez, Celia Morales. Thanks, Ms. Artis.
Okay. First, I'm not even a city resident. I'm a county resident, but most of my family lives in the city. And so, of course, I'm very concerned about what happens with them in the city. But I'm going to tell you a little story. My nephew was a dirt biker. 11 years ago, he was hit and killed. My sister runs down to the scene, and as my nephew lays there dying in the street, the officer says to her, "I told him I was going to get him." My concern, and if I get choked up, my concern is the social skills training for these officers, and number one, compassion for these citizens of Baltimore. Shorty addressed one of my questions I also had was about, I understand that bonuses are attached to, of course, crime reduction. How can I pray that that does not mean lock them up for any and everything for our young black people here in the city of Baltimore?
Great question. Great question. First of all, this department is under a federal consent decree, so there's a tremendous amount of oversight.
I'm aware of that. I even help with the Department of Justice in providing information for that.
And on top of that, I'm here now. That's number 2. It will be about culture change, and what you heard and what you just repeated to us is absolutely unacceptable, and it's indicative of an old culture that some of it probably still remains. So it is my job and our job to to root that out and to change that culture so that, number one, officers perform their duties with empathy and with compassion, and that we are hard on crime but soft on people. And too often the message has been be hard on crime, but that translated hard on people. It is, it's not about being soft on crime, it's about being hard on crime, soft on people. And with bias-free policing training, with, I'm certain, implicit bias training to help the members of our department understand their biases and how they perceive people, whether they think they know about it or not, teaching the members of our department how to recognize that and then how to overcome those biases to treat people fairly and with respect and with dignity is not just part of the consent decree, but it is part of what is a best practice and what we should want to do and will do. And so, I assure you that we will bring about that level of training to our department in our effort to change our culture and way of thinking so citizens don't have to tell us what you just told us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Okay, I'm Alex McCamey, graduate of Forest Park. And I want to say welcome to Charm City, number one.
Thank you.
Number two, I want to say congratulations to the mayor and the dream team, the city council, because your job is not easy. And I understand that. We got a big problem with the murders, the gangs, the drugs, eating away at our community. And last August, I had a nephew that was murdered 2 doors down from my house. So we're in pain. You hear a lot of pain. As a black man, it's a lot of pain. But on the bright side, we're not going to sit still. We're going to work with you. So my question is, what can I do to help you?
First of all, thank you. Thank you. I think the first thing you do is make sure, and this is not to say that you're not already doing this, but become involved in your individual neighborhood or neighborhood association. Connect yourself with the commander of your district. Become on a first name basis with the commander, the assistant commander, the shift supervisors in that police district, and whatever organizations are available to you, get connected. And there are some initiatives that I believe will be coming forward that connects neighborhoods and associations to the police department that can meet on a regular basis to discuss the issues and bring to light those issues to the commander so that they can implement some of your concerns. I would say that is the very first thing you can do, is make yourself available and make the commanders know who you are, and then so you can hold them accountable because you're on a first name basis with the leadership of your police district. And then help us recruit other citizens like you to do the very same thing. And that's what you can do right now, immediately. And then you will see other initiatives come about that link you and me together and other citizens together and other members of the police department together to create dialogues and citizen police organizations that are joint organizations to kind of brainstorm and to figure out how to best approach problems or some of the issues you might see. When you see that, get involved and help me recruit other citizens to do the very same thing. That's the absolute best thing you can do. You can do that right now.
Ma'am, before you start, I think we have one person ahead of you, and I just want to make sure we don't skip him. I have Mr. Dixon.
My name is John Dixon. I'm the custodian for Forest Park Senior High School. Mr. Harrison, I met you in the bathroom earlier today. Right? And
please don't tell him what we talked about.
Right. We didn't talk about anything, but I just wanted to ask you about Lexington Market. It's 5 blocks away from the mayor's office, and that's one of the biggest illicit drugs activities in Baltimore. It's 5 blocks. If you count the blocks, it's Howard Street, then you got Liberty Street, then you got Charles Street, and then St. Paul's, and then that's that lady's office. They sell every drug down there that you can imagine, every drug. So one day I went down there for lunch, and I wanted to call the police because I was getting harassed about guys asking me about blue tops, red tops, fentanyl, whatever, barbiturates and all this stuff, right? So when I called one of the police officers, I waited in my car till he got there. Guess what he told me? He said, fuck them, let them kill themselves. We talk about cleaning up the community, but you got, that's 5 blocks away from the mayor's office. 5 blocks. They don't do it over Federal Hill. They don't do it over Fells Point. I mean, that's crazy, man. That's crazy. So I wanted to be transparent, and I didn't want to ask you that in the bathroom. So I wanted to. Right.
Thank you for not stealing my attention.
Right.
Great point, but that speaks, what you're saying is related to what the comment the other lady said. It speaks to a culture that is long-standing, deep-rooted, and systemic, that it is now my job with the job of the leadership here in the police department to change the culture so that we have empathy toward situations and that we actually care about the problems that exist in our community, and that when officers call, when citizens call, we come. And when you call us, we're actually coming to do something about it. And so, but thank you. We're taking notes about the location that you just described so that I can give it to the appropriate people to take the appropriate action.
Lexington Market, established in 1782. Right.
I got you, but there are 2 issues. There's the problem about the drug market, and there's a problem about the culture within the
5
department.
blocks away from the mayor's office, that's terrible.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon.
Thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening, Commissioner. My name is Nicole Gatewood, and I represent the Hillsdale Heights Neighborhood Association. I'm Vice President. And my concern piggybacks actually on officer morale. And I'm concerned that as we're talking about everything, we've forgotten that these officers are going through quite a bit. And how do we rebuild that? Because they're our first line of defense. And as we're figuring that out, we need to talk about the systemic issue of we have officers at the top and officers at the bottom, but how do we deal with the core in the middle and uprooting the issues as we're talking about recalibrating, retraining, and also making sure that we deal with the biases, implicit biases that exist. What is your plan for dealing with that? And I realize that you have worked the gamut and you've been all over. However, Baltimore is a very unique place. We love it, it's our gem, but it is unusual. And you've had many predecessors who have come in and they have been very ambitious and they have failed. What do you have as your plan and how will it differ?
Well, first of all, thank you for that.
Certainly.
Right now, it's about developing a plan. The development of the plan comes from hearing from the community, comes from doing deep-rooted assessments in the organization as an organization assessment, as personnel assessments, supervisory management and leadership capability assessments to figure out what we need, who we need, and then who has the skill sets to join this team, whether from the department or not from the department, to address those issues that you just talked about. And yes, officer morale is a problem. Number one, officer morale is usually a problem because I think the officers are probably beating themselves up unnecessarily. And then there's constant negative reinforcement of things over and over and over again through a 24-hour media news cycle that reinforces that. And so I am here to be the biggest advocate for both the officers and the community. The officers in the department will call me commissioner, but the members of the community will call me commissioner. So I am as much their commissioner as I am your commissioner. And just like I'm advocating on your behalf for a culture change and a paradigm shift in the way we think so that we can perform at a very, very high professional level, I'm also advocating for the members of the department to make sure that we get the resources we need so they can be successful. So we can bring in the best in the country to teach us about our implicit bias and help us overcome that. So we can bring in the best in the country to talk about being ethical and how to overcome bad acts when we see our colleagues perform those bad acts. And so it is our intention, whether you're not hearing a plan right now, but it's our intention to cast a big vision about how to develop the right information, to select the right people, to build this leadership team so that we can put the kind of plan together that addresses that. So that we can know when people are not performing to standard and at a high level, and that we can do what it takes by holding people accountable for not addressing it when they find out about it. And it is my it is my goal to manage them up or manage them out.
Excellent. And we've had a very strong relationship with the officers, so we care about them, they care about us, and we thank them for what they do, and we want to be part of that process.
Absolutely.
Hillsdale Heights.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Lydia, before we get started, I think there's only one other name that I called after you, but I want to check in with you just because I see some earpieces. Can you talk to me for a second about who you have with you, and so I can document them on the list?
Sure. So with us we have, I actually am deferring my place to a community member in order to translate for her.
Great.
As well as our other community organizer is deferring her place in order to allow another community member to speak and translate.
And that would be great. If you wouldn't mind making sure folks share their names and the neighborhood that they live in for the PC, please. Thank you.
Of course.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Judith Topping.
Good afternoon, my name is Judith Topping.
Vivo en el vecindario por 12 años.
I have lived here in the Falstaff neighborhood for the last 12 years.
He tenido amistades que han sido asaltados en el vecindario y cuando llaman a la policía no le escriben un reporte.
I've had friends that live here in the neighborhood as well who have called police officers after they have been assaulted and have not been given police reports after the assault.
El asalto fue algo muy grave.
These assaults were something very heavy.
Está menos tiempo miembros de la comunidad que han estado graves que podrían peligrar por una vida y han sido gravemente heridos y podrían aplicar por una visa U sin.
So some of these assaults community members have been brutalized to the point that they might be able to apply for a U visa.
Pero sin embargo no pueden aplicar el proceso con el fiscal.
But it has been hard for them to start the process with the state attorney because they have not been giving a police report.
¿Cómo usted podría mejorar el mecanismo de los reportes de la comunidad?
How will you improve the mechanism for reports to be issued by officers after brutal assaults?
Thank you for that, and it will be my goal, and it will be the goal of the department to make sure that we are servicing every member of the Baltimore community. Every member of the Baltimore community. And if you call the police and there is not an appropriate response, then you should call and ask for a supervisor. And you should demand of the supervisor that you get the appropriate response, especially if you are a victim of crimes.
Tengo un amigo casualmente, él estaba a las 5 de la mañana para acá, aquí en la comunidad esperando para ir a trabajar y vino una persona y lo agarró, no sé si andaba endrogado, tenía una manopla y le ha dado golpe, él ahora tiene dolores de cabeza, le rompió aquí, le partió el diente.
So she's describing an experience of her friend who was brutalized and his skull was actually opened around 5 in the morning when this occurred.
Y él fue a la policía y le dijo al policía para hacer el reporte, le dijo, oh, no se puede hacer nada, no va a pasar nada, no hizo el reporte, no le ayudó en nada.
So he conversed with the officer to do this report, and the officer said that they could not do the report and they wouldn't do a report if he followed up.
Él ahora tiene dolores de cabeza, ahora con el frío le da muchos dolores de cabeza y está bien mal, le dan como ataques como de epilepsia y todo eso por el golpe tan fuerte que le dio, porque el que le dio se puso una manopla para darle.
So he was brutalized to the point that now, as a consequence, he has epileptic seizures, and the cold is really affecting him as well.
If you are not getting the appropriate response, you should immediately call for a supervisor. And if you are still not getting an appropriate response, you should contact the Internal Affairs Department immediately. You should file a complaint for what the officers have failed to do. And then if, certainly we have some work to do to make sure we have systems of accountability. But you can always send a correspondence directly to my office. And then I will ensure that the Internal Affairs Department ensures that, number one, a report is filed, and then the appropriate action is taken with the officer who failed to take the right action.
Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias, se lo agradecemos.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll be translating for Edwin Golan.
I'm sorry, can you tell us your name and tell us his name one more time, please?
My name is Gabriela Roque, and his name is Edwin Gillen.
Thank you.
Tell us your neighborhood.
En Northwest.
In the Falstaff neighborhood.
Okay. Buenas noches a todos. Mi nombre es Edwin Guillén, como ella dijo, y vivo aquí en el vecindario del noroeste por los últimos 13 años.
He said, good evening, everybody. His name is Edwin Golan, and he has lived in the Falstaff neighborhood for the last 13 years.
Mientras he visto mi comunidad inmigrante crecer en nuestro vecindario, me preocupa el miedo y desconfianza que muchos de mi comunidad tenemos con la policía.
In that time, he is worried. He has seen the number of immigrants grow in this community, and he's worried about the lack of trust that there is between the immigrant community and the police department.
El confiar en el departamento de policía es muy importante para poder reportar si somos víctimas de un delito o si somos testigos.
Trust is essential to have between the police department and the immigrant community so that when someone is a victim of crime or is a witness to a crime, they feel comfortable going to the police department and speaking to police officers.
Aquí en Baltimore tenemos una orden ejecutiva que dice que los policías no pueden colaborar con ICE. ¿Cómo usted planea asegurarse que todos los policías estén bien entrenados para seguir esta orden ejecutiva?
So here in the city, we have an executive order that doesn't allow police officers to ask questions about someone's immigration status. How will you train your officers to uphold that executive order?
¿Cómo va no solamente entrenar, pero también hacer responsable a cualquier policía que no siga esta orden ejecutiva?
And not only train the officers, but also hold officers accountable if they fail to uphold this executive order. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Very good question. It's very important that we have great relationships with every community, people from all walks of life. And just today, I was informed that the Baltimore Police Department is crafting its immigration policy to mirror the New Orleans immigration policy, and I challenge and charge any of you to go on the NOPD website to look at it. It's the most robust immigration policy in America. Been vetted by the Department of Justice, which also does not allow officers to ask about immigration status. And the Baltimore Police Department policy, I believe, will be just that. And I will ensure that when officers violate that, they'll be held accountable. All I need to do is know about it. And you have to, when it happens, we have to know about it. But we will, of course, implement, for every policy creation, there's policy implementation, but there's training to go along with that. And so we will train every member of the police department about the new policy, which more than likely will be just what you described, which would have officers to respond to victims of crime, witnesses of crime, complainants of crime, and/or quality of life issues where we can engage and you can tell us about it, we can solve the problem without asking about immigration status. That's what the new Baltimore policy, in my opinion, will look like.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next 5 names are Celia Morales, Sharon.
Celia Morales deferred to Edwin.
Thank you so much. Sharon Jones, Charlene Batts Thomas, David Troy, William Washington. We just heard from Edvin. I think this last name is Crisani de los Santos. Ms. Jones, when you're ready.
I apologize. Hello, everyone. Hello, Mayor. Welcome to you and your wife.
Thank you.
I'd like to say that I am part of the Resident Advisory Board for Baltimore City Housing, and I sit on the Commissioner Board as well. And my district where I live at is here, Belvedere, 800 block of Belvedere Avenue. And I'm here because the Resident Advisory Board would like to have a close relationship with the police department and the mayor, because we do deal with a lot of residents. So we deal with families, and we feel that if we get together and work together, we can work something out, because just as much as we need you, you need us. And if we get a unity together to help these families or help the youth, because we do know what's going on. There's evidence what's going around, not just in Baltimore City, it's worldwide. But if we all work, like I say, work collectively together, we can figure something out and help one another. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I absolutely look forward to us working together, but connecting you and your team with the members of our command staff, and then the members who work that are subordinate to the commanders, to make sure that you not only know your commander, but you know the people on the commander's team in every district. And so that we can collaborate and work together to solve these issues. But thank you for that.
And I thank you. And I also wanted to say that we are located at 417 East Fayette Street on the 3rd floor in conference room 345. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Baltimore.
Thank you.
I would like to say thank you, Mayor, for having this forum for citizens such as myself to be able to come out and express myself. My name is Charlene Batts Thomas. I'm a citizen of Baltimore, born and raised here. My greatest concern is really just about respect. Respect and dignity for the residents of Baltimore. I work with pregnant women and children. I'm out and about in the community myself, and I've had my own run-ins with the cops. And it's not nice when it happens. I remember when my aunt was alive, she was disabled, and I pulled into a spot. I knew it was a no parking spot, but I had a disabled aunt who could not walk very far. And all I was trying to do was just let her out of the car so I could go and legally park. So an officer pulls up on me, and he, is real rude. And I'm saying, look, officer, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to explain. I'm not trying to park. I'm trying to let my disabled aunt out of the car so she can get into this place right here, and I'm going to move the car. I had to call 911 on the officer. So I'm saying to you, as an educated black woman in Baltimore City, I've had to have run-ins with Baltimore City police officers, and I don't appreciate it. And I'm saying that a lot of times I just think it's a matter of training, a matter of social skills training. You might have the ability to fight crime or, get the thugs off the street, but I'm saying when you're relating to people on the street, you just have to have common decency. You have to treat me, I say, if you treat me like you would treat your sister, or you treat your mother, or you treat your brother, you won't have any problems. But if you're treating me different from the way that you treat people you love, then that's where you run into the problems. And I'm saying all I want to do is be a part of the solution. I'm not here to complain. I'm here to welcome you, and I'm here to say, I'm ready to put my shoes on and go out in the community and work with you to make Baltimore City a better place. I'm tired of the crime, I'm tired of the violence, and anybody that commits a crime, please don't do it around me, because I'm reporting you. That's it. So at the end of the day, if you out here shooting and gangbanging, I hate to say it, you're gonna kill me, because I'm gonna report you. And you might take me out after that, and I'm cool with it, because at the end of the day, I want to see our children thrive. The city needs to thrive. Our seniors don't need to be locked up. My mother's 73. I want my mother to be able to roam freely. I want to be able to roam freely. I don't want to be scared. I live all over Baltimore City. That's why I didn't cite a neighborhood. I have a house in over on Ellicott Driveway. I'm over
Ms.
on
Bass,
East
thank
Side
you so
near
much for
Hopkins.
your comment.
I'm over near Druid Heights, Upton. My mother lives in
Ms.
Mount
Bass?
Washington. I understand my time is up. I came to talk. So I'm sorry, but I just want to say welcome.
Thank you
and
so much.
I want to be a part of the solution. Thank you. Yeah.
Look, thank you for the welcome. And look, let's not even go there on that negative. We don't want anything to happen to you. We ain't gonna let that happen. Thank you for that. It is about respect. It is about respect. So I met with all the commanders, captains and above, all the way up to the deputy commissioners just today. And I gave the analogy of how we want to treat people. And I used the analogy of walking into the Ritz-Carlton Hotel and how the Ritz-Carlton treats its customers when you walk through the door. And for our ladies who like to shop at Saks Fifth Avenue, what it feels like when you walk into high-end places, how they treat you, that's how I want the department to treat its citizens. You can be tough on crime and soft on people, and so it is about respect. But the level of training that's coming to the department to change the way we think and how we interact with people is coming. And I totally agree with you on the way citizens should be treated. And you can look,
I'd like to be a part of it.
and we welcome your help.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Next comment?
Hello, my name is David Troy, and I'm a resident of Bolton Hill. I run a group on Facebook called Baltimore City Voters, and these are two questions that came to us from that group. The first question is that FOP3 recently claimed on Twitter that the culture of corruption has been addressed. So how are you going to approach true reform with the police union? The second question is, what do you believe is the main driver of gun violence, and what specific proven strategies do you support to reduce gun violence?
First of all, thank you for that question, and good to see you again. You know, people say things all the time. Just because it's said doesn't mean that it's true. First of all, right now I'm here to do my own assessments about the organization and about the individuals in the organization to figure out who has the will and capacity to lead at a higher level, at management, mid-level level, at the supervisory level, and figure out how to build this dynamic team to move this department forward. That's number one. The culture of violence when it comes to guns, it is just that. It is a culture of violence. First of all, it's a horrible availability of guns, both legal and illegal, but it is about the decision. Let's be real. The decision when it comes to gun violence, the decision to commit a crime and the decision to use the gun is not made when the trigger is pulled. The decision to use a gun is made when a person walks out the door at home with the gun. They've predisposed in their mind that they are going to use it should the need arise. So we have to change the culture about why people even think they need a gun and why they think they should roam the streets with it. Because when they face a problem, they're going to use it. It is their conflict resolution tool. So we have to change the culture. It's the availability of guns, it's the proliferation of guns, it's weak laws that allow people to use them with no consequences. And we have to change that, and I will need your support to change that, because as long as there are no consequences for carrying an illegal gun, people are going to continue to do it. And when they face people that they don't like, they're going to use those guns. That's the decision of the individual. We, the police, are responding to it and are trying to stop people from doing it, but the individuals are making those decisions. So we have to change consequences on the back end, but change the way people think about carrying guns on the front end. And that will take a large education, that will take a large cultural change, both inside the department and out in the community. But it will take all of our support to change the minds of people who make decisions to commit those bad acts by carrying illegal guns and then using them.
All right, thank you very much.
Sir, Mr. Washington?
Good evening. My concern is, my name is William Washington. I live in East Arlington, not too far from here. My biggest concern with Baltimore City Police is the lack of social value in what it provides. Okay, there are two basic things that everyone doesn't want to have happen to them. They don't want to have violence visited on them. They don't want their stuff taken.
I'm sorry, I missed the last
thing. They don't want their stuff taken. Okay, so, but given how things have happened, okay, in fact, the previous Commissioner Tuggle just said that there are an insufficient number of officers and detectives to give anyone a reasonable expectation that that we protected from violence, and that if that does occur, that there aren't a sufficient number of detectives to work the case. So I was curious about what you're willing to do to add more social value from the standpoint of addressing crime, addressing property crime, addressing violent crime, and how to do it in a way that it has social value, that it makes more allies than it does enemies. Thank you.
Great question. Thank you for that. And I believe what you're asking is tied to what a couple of citizens have asked and spoken about that are concerns to them. And it's about compassion and empathy, how we feel about the city and how we feel about the residents who live in this city and the issues that are important to the residents. And so, look, it's my goal to make sure we build a department that can service you in a way that protects your life and that protects your property, and then gives the appropriate response when those kinds of crimes occur. And certainly we're dealing with a manpower shortage, but that's what we're working on now, creating smart initiatives to overcome that so we can still deliver excellent service to you. Overcoming that so that even though you call, we still come and we can service you, whether it's a crime against a person or a property. All of it should be important to us. And there's a way for us to deliver that service that accomplishes all that, even quality of life issues. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Crisalis de los Santos, and I don't want to specify what community I live in. All I want to say is that I am a young Afro-Latina here in Baltimore City. And one of the things that concern me the most is the gap of relationship and the negative relationship that the police department has with the Latino community here in Baltimore. As a student and as a youth leader here in Baltimore City, one of the things that I'm not even going to go to that point, but I'm going to go when I'm registered for my classes in college. One of the things that I look at first is the time, because I don't want to be out in the street when it's dark. My direct question for you is, and I feel like that's a question that many youth have in the city, is what role will the youth have in the transition of creating a relationship within the youth and the police department here in the city? And what will you do, not just to better, it's not just what you're going to say here, but my point is how each police officer is going to be trained to stop the social profiling and all the negative stigma that there has been created about youth of color, and also Latino, as a Latina myself, because I don't feel that in this city I'm not just socially profiled for being a woman. I'm a Latina, I'm a minority, and I'm black. So that's a question that I ask myself every day, and I want to know, what is your vision for the youth in this city, and what will you do to achieve it?
First of all, great question, and thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. Stay right there. That's very important to me. And so it's tied to a couple of other questions about implicit bias training and bias-free policing and equal opportunities. It's all that. And this transformation of this police department is designed to make sure that everybody gets access to all police services and that we treat everybody equally and fairly. And that you're not profiled and that you're treated equally, and that the only time that you should be engaged with the police officer is a positive engagement for a positive reason, or that the officers have some level of legal authority of reasonable suspicion that allows them to stop and engage you for that. And so all of that's part of the holistic change in the training, the policies, the implementation of the policies, the protocols and practices. All of that by consent decree mandate is happening right now. But certainly we're going to make sure that we do it because that's what we want to do and it's the right thing to do. So I charge you to stay connected to us and to get involved and to bring other young people like you to the table so that we can hear from you. It's been a long time since I was your age, and I need you to teach me about things that are important to you. We need to hear from you so we can know what's important to you. So I look forward to the future of youth advisory councils where we can connect you with our commanders, our assistant commanders, and police officers in the districts so they can learn from you about what's needed in your community with your peers, but that you can learn what's their responsibility and what's our responsibility and why we do what we do, so you can have an understanding of what happens within the police department. And I think then we both can have a mutual respect for one another. We can understand the needs of the youth. You can understand the dynamics of a police department. But I charge you to get involved and bring more youth to the table. You will see youth councils come about in the very near future where we invite you to tell us about the needs of the youth community.
Thank you, and that
Thank
is
you.
what we are expecting.
Absolutely.
Thank you. The next 5 names are, and I'm going to apologize ahead of time if I mess up anyone's name. Meriden Goodman, Sandra Speets, Christina Flowers, Kim Trueheart, Rufus Thompson. Whenever you're ready, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, my name is Marita Goodman. I'm representing a couple of hats. I'm the president of the Garwin Oaks United Neighbors Association, and I'm also the executive director of Go Northwest Housing Resource Center, which is a housing counseling agency that works with neighborhoods in this Northwest district. And hopefully sometime I'll get the chance to talk to you since you're new. Hopefully you might need housing counseling service, and we're here to provide that. But my concern here is, one of them is the recruitment strategy to get more officers, because even though everybody has a lot of concerns and issues, the bottom line is if we don't get enough people to work for the department, it's kind of moot, because you can't run the guys and the women into the ground. They can't work 24-hour shifts, you know, because that doesn't help anybody, either them or us. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is also, I'd like to know your thoughts or plans on how you will deploy the manpower that you do have, since the department numbers are low. Because I do know, and we've heard that, you know, the violent crimes are the ones where they send the officers. But the bottom line, and this I guess is part of my work, is that I work to try to bring people into the neighborhood and to keep the people who are here. And even though violent crimes are important, it's also the quality of life problems that to me have just as much impact, because no one wants to live in a neighborhood where they're concerned about being robbed or people walking the street or drug activity or prostitution or that kind of thing. All of those, they might be low on your radar, but they have as much impact as, say, a murder that might happen in the neighborhood once a year, because people are seeing all these other things every day. So I just want to, and I've mentioned this a couple of times when I talked to your predecessors, so I just want to put that out there. So if you would also consider that in your deployment. We understand that, you know, if you have a murder, that's the thing, but also to consider that as well. Okay.
Great points. Recruitment is an absolute high priority, but let me just be clear, there are no low priorities, and there's nothing low on our radar. And when I say our, I mean the mayor and me, the council and me, all of us together. There's nothing low on the priority. Everything is important, and we can't do one or the other. We really got to do all of it together at the same time, every day, all the time. Right?
Yes.
Right. So
yes.
Recruitment is important. We're creating something new that's going to be implemented, and to my belief will be launched this week. It's called RecruitStat, where we will be able to look at every aspect of recruiting, all the way from the time the person clicks on the online application, and then be able to track it, know who's doing what with the team, with action items, who's performing them, who's not performing them, what are the deadlines, why we're missing deadlines, so we can hold people accountable, so we can know. And so there's a new system and measure of accountability that's in place, that's about to be launched just this week, that helps us with that. And then, of course, we have to do a very robust marketing and recruiting campaign to attract the best and brightest here in Baltimore and from around the area, to make sure people really want to come here. But we have to make Baltimore Police Department an attractive place for people to want to come. It's pay, it's working conditions, it's promotion and upward mobility within the organization, it's selection of assignments, it's cultivating leadership skills and development skills, and providing opportunities. And we have to do all of that within the organization, so people outside will look at it and say, that's a place I want to go. So recruiting is one thing, but designing the organization such that makes it attractive to people who look at it. But that's going to come with the messaging campaign, and as long as the messaging campaign is always negative, the people listening to our recruiting strategy will hear that and say, well, maybe I don't want to do that.
Right.
So it is about us telling people that the Baltimore Police Department is the place you want to come, and the reasons why.
Yes.
And the deployment strategy, certainly my assessments with the organizational capacity right now, with the leadership capacity, will drive the creation of a deployment strategy and plan that deals with manpower shortage and how we overcome that to deliver those police services. All of that's happening right now.
Okay, and we would also like to work with you as well. So,
Thank you. Christina, before I have you check in, there's one name that was before yours. I just want to check in with this person to make sure that she doesn't want to testify. Sandra Speets. Okay.
Good evening, good evening. Welcome to Baltimore City. I'm great to hear the words that you use, creative and developing leadership. And you will find in Baltimore City, there's a lot of great grassroots leadership that is willing to participate and help you. My role in Baltimore City has many hats. I'm the Assistant Secretary of the NAACP, and I'm a part of the Ministerial Conference, but I'm also a homeless advocate in the city. And one of my biggest concerns with Baltimore City Police Department is probably over a year ago, it was developed a HOT team, is H-O-T, and this team is very interesting when it comes to engaging some of our most vulnerable homeless individuals. Whether they're in the woods, whether they're in encampments, they should be treated with dignity and respect. I got a whole list of complaints for you. I don't know who you want me to give them to, but I'm more than willing to work with you and your team so that we can probably work together and collectively come up with some solutions. One of the things you talk about, and I hear a lot of my family around here talk about socialization skills. I called the Central Station the other day because somebody had died, and we got a report that they were missing. And I started asking a lot of questions. So sometimes I believe when officers are engaged with informative people, he hung up on me. And I got his name and everything, and I've been kind of discerning and praying how to deal with it. But I'm glad you're here because I'll get a chance to share that too. Because that's something that's really concerning in our city, just with the socializing and engaging, because other than homeless individuals, the homicides and everything, it just extends from so many rooted issues. I thank you, Madam Mayor, for having us this opportunity to speak and the rest of my relationships upon this road. But I do look forward to having an independent dialogue with you and that we can collaboratively share some information.
I look forward to it, and thank you. And after this is over, we'll put you with the appropriate person with those issues.
Thank you.
Ms. Trueheart?
Good evening. My name is Kim Trueheart. Howard Park is where I live these days. But I want you to know that in the early 80s, I lived in Gulfport, and my daddy lived in Algiers, and so I used to spend a tremendous amount of time in Algiers.
I just moved from Algiers.
Awesome, okay. Now, we in Baltimore, we have our own share of desire projects. We have isolated communities like Cherry Hill. We don't have a whole lot of people who shop at Saks or go to the Four Seasons, but one of the things that's important in my world is community oversight, because right now we don't have much confidence in the police department or the work that they do. We know what we want them to do, but how they execute it is very challenging these days. So I'm proud that we now have a new police contract. I'm thrilled that it includes some civilian oversight, but I'd like to know what your perspective is on civilian oversight. I'd also like to say that I'm not a big fan of the PERF organization, and I'd like to get your perspective on that as well. Transparency is really important to me as well. I served over 30 years with the United States Navy. And I came home, and it really troubles me that there is a lack of transparency. There's a lot of verbose conversation around community engagement, but when it comes to putting it to action, we don't get it. We really don't get it. It's a lot of lip service. And I have high expectations of you. I want to work with you. I want to support you. I think you're probably the right guy for this job. But I don't think you can do things as usual. And I need to ask your wife, can I give him a hug? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Come on, come stand up here with me. Thank you so much. First of all, I have no problem with civilian oversight. I came from a police department that had an independent police monitor on top of the consent decree monitor with the Office of the Inspector General, and there was, with the consent decree team, we had more oversight than anybody in the world. We have that here, and so we welcome that. That's not an issue for me. As for PERF, if you think I'm the right guy, PERF is instrumental for me being this right guy, so let me help you change the perspective of PERF, because they help get me here. And it's a very good organization that cultivates leaders and develops people for police chief jobs. So it's very good. And the third thing, because you asked me 13 things, what was the third thing?
Transparency.
Have no problem with transparency. Now here's what I like to see. Here's what I like to see, but it's going to take some time to get there because I did this in my previous department. I'm big on transparency. And on our website, we listed every stop that was made, date, time, location, age, race, and sex of the person stopped, not the name, all body camera metadata, the date, time, location of a body cam video, every disciplinary action, no name, every use of force with no name, all of it online for citizens. That's open data. Now, we're going to work to develop a high level of technology capability that we hope to be able to do that. And working with our labor groups, working with the technology team, we hope to create an open data that I believe already exists here, and just add to it and be more transparent by putting what we do out there for you, so you don't have to say you don't trust us. And I get that, but we're open to solve that. And thank you for the hug. You all right with that, baby? All right. I ain't gonna get in trouble tonight.
That's right. That's sweet.
Thank you.
Mr. Thompson, if you don't mind, before we start with you, I just want to call the next 5 folks up. Will Hanna, Mario Chang, Tina Wilkins, I think, Christina Rogers, and Darren Spivey. Thanks for your patience, sir.
Hello, how you doing tonight?
I'm great.
Good. My name is Rufus Thompson III. I'm a community activist, and I'm from the Garwin Oaks United Neighbors Association. And I have one specific question for you. Persistent problem of prostitution up and along Garrison Boulevard that we've been trying to get rid of for over 20 years. And we're fed up with it. We need a strategy that's going to eliminate it, not shove it on the background, because these prostitutes come in front of our homes, leave their prophylactics and whatever else they use. And I want you to help us with this, and I'm willing to help you with it.
Thank you for that, and I look forward to your help, and we will get with our leadership team to find the best way, working with our citizens to figure out how to enforce that, where there are consequences that make it a deterrent for people to engage in that. And certainly, any opportunity for us to eradicate human trafficking, where people are victimized against their will, we want to deal with that as well, because some of it will be prostitution for the sake of prostitution. Some of it might even be human trafficking. So that's an assessment we need to make as a leadership team to know what it is we're dealing with and then create a strategy to do that. And I appreciate that. We look forward to working with you on that. So my friend that just gave me the hug, where is she? So for the analogy I gave with the Ritz-Carlton and Saks Fifth Avenue was not about shopping at Saks. It's about the treatment they give you, and they put on world-class training on how to treat people. It is the five-star service that I hope to bring to the Baltimore Police Department. Y'all didn't catch that, huh?
Good evening, everyone. Madam Mayor, members of the council, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome you and your wife. I just wanted to say that a lot of people had to understand that there's a difference between crime prevention and law enforcement. So yes. I want to get your take on that in a second, but when people need to understand that because we get a new commissioner, crime not going to stop tomorrow. Okay? That if we had this many people that would show up other places, on the corners, maybe some of the crime would stop. Okay? So it's hard to get this many people to support other things, and there's a lot of organizations in here. Okay? Whole bunch of them, bunch of communities. I'm just a guy from Park Heights. Okay? So the thing that two things that I want to know if you would improve is one, the recruitment to the Explorer program. Because we've seen it be very effective in Park Heights over the years in Northwest District. But we wanted to see that expanded so that young people can have an opportunity to be exposed to the police department. I think that's one way to bridge some of those relationships. And then my other question on your take on crime prevention versus law enforcement.
Well, first of all, let me thank you for both of those points.
Yes,
and the Explorers program has been very effective, not just in Baltimore, but in a lot of cities across the country. And somehow went away in many places, but it's our goal to bring it back. And I even think it's an element of our consent decree. And what it does is it allows us to reach down beneath the age of 21, because you have to be 21 to join, and reach down to kids perhaps as young as 14, 15, 16, get them exposed to a police department, the culture within the department, but it actually creates a pipeline to the application process, because if we can keep them connected to the department and prevent them from making the bad decisions that would disqualify them, like committing crimes and using drugs and being with the wrong crowd, if we can keep them away from that by keeping them close to us, it doesn't solve the recruitment problem today, but it does create a pipeline that's a perpetual recruitment tool over the long term. And when it's all said and done, we can then create a pipeline to recruit members of the Baltimore community, because we started in the high school years and then we created a pipeline to the department by doing that. Great point. And yes, crime prevention is different from law enforcement enforcing crime, because crime prevention is all about all of us doing what we're doing now to change the minds of people on why they commit crimes, and then dealing with the multidisciplinary approach that the mayor has with the violent crime initiative, violence reduction initiative, to change all the social ills that we have: poverty, housing, drug abuse, mental health, unemployment, skills, jobs, or the lack thereof. All of those things in this multidisciplinary approach are part of crime prevention. Notice that I didn't put police in any of that.
Right.
That's all of the issues, criminological, sociological, all of it is at play. And then law enforcement is about having consequences and changing people's minds about committing crime through consequences. Thus, it's a deterrent effect to prevent them from doing that, but they have to work together. That's what we're doing right now. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chang?
How you doing?
Great news. Good night.
So I have a couple different titles, but I'm the vice president of Korean Business Association, as well as I am, I'm here as the Mondamin Neighborhood Improvement Association business chair. So my concern, or basically what I want to talk about, is we have a problem with loiterers, people standing around on the corners, and even with the businesses. If you can get them off the corner, they go sit on vacant properties that sit around in the community. I'm very involved in the community, so that's my concern, is people who stand around, and if you can get them to move, they'll go to a property that sits 2 doors down, and they won't move, and what we can do about that.
Well, thank you for that, but I think there's one issue there are two issues. One is the issue on private property, where it can be enforced through local ordinances. And then there's another thing on public property. But then that brings us back to what I just said, the multidisciplinary approach, dealing with all the issues and jobs, skills to get those jobs, housing, homelessness, conflict resolution, all the things that cause people to be in those places and to not be productive. Perhaps that's what we're aiming to correct right now with this multidisciplinary approach, because some of it is enforceable, some of it is not, but it is another bunch of social issues that cause it, but not criminological issues that cause it.
Tina,
my name is Darren
I'm sorry, let me just check in for 1 second, sir. I think we had one name and I don't want to skip anyone. Is Tina Wilkin still interested in asking a question or making a comment? Tina Wilkin? What about Christine Rogers? Sir, are you Mr. Spivey?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for your patience.
Yes, ma'am. How you doing? First of all,
great, thank you.
I want to thank the mayor. I want to first and secondly thank all the officers that are here. And I want to thank you. Now, I want to address some concerns. And I'm going to be honest, and I don't know nobody in here, except for Christine Flowers, of course, I'm sorry. But I'm going to be really honest. I'm an ex-convict, okay? There's 17 on 25, okay? And I heard what you said. But see, the biggest issue is, or one of the issues is this. If you don't stop crowds, because see, now that I'm reformed, I'll say reform, okay? I don't think it's right for my elderly sisters, my elderly brothers, or the sisters that's in here with children should have to walk through 30, 40, 50 dudes that stand in front of the store so she can go get her son or her daughter some milk. Because see, to me, that's a prime time to commit a crime. Because see, I watched, and don't get me wrong, I'm not downplaying any officer in here, but I've watched officers on Pennsylvania Avenue, Lafayette, and other various places. You see these guys and you see these women carrying these children or holding one hand, or an older woman, I'm not going to say old lady, an older woman trying to grab her grandchild to get through. She shouldn't have to do that. And the officer shouldn't sit there and allow that to happen. Get up. Make them move, because I respect my elders. I come from the old school, even though I was a criminal. I respect my elders. I came from the old school. When they was walking, you got out their way. Okay? So now, I'm looking at what can ex-cons who've actually changed. Let me tell you, I've actually changed. I've seen my ways. And I apologize to my community. I'm from Washington, D.C., okay? And I've been focused here in Baltimore. And I've watched too many of our kids laid out on these streets.
Mr. Spivey,
So
do you
what
mind
can we do? What can Safe Streets, Ms. Flowers, Larry Wallace, myself, what can we do to help you? I'm not going to come up here complaining. I'm asking you as an ex-convict, what can I do to help you?
Thank
First
you for
of all,
your
great
question.
Thank you for coming with something and being solution-oriented. Thank you for that. I think what we can all do, especially you, is help us understand, and you probably have to lead this, not us, how to educate the young men you're talking about, how to educate them to think like you thinking, because if we can't move them through and force them, then you have to educate them why they should move on their own. You feel me? You feel me? Help us educate them why they should move on their own while we work to legitimately move them and engage with them to foster the right kind of relationship. So we don't want to just jump out and attack them and then scream at them about moving. You know, we want to engage them and build those relationships we're talking about. But there are times it's going to be better received from you than from us. And so there are partnerships that we can form, and I'm willing to join forces with you and put you with the right people, because you're probably going to be more effective at communicating that message than we are. And I look forward to working with you on that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you all so much for your questions tonight. Going to ask you to take time to be sure you complete your evaluations and turn them in. We're going to use the feedback on the evaluation forms to inform our next 8 sessions. For those of you who we were unable to get to or who didn't have the opportunity to sign in on a sheet, feel free to either share your questions with the PC on the evaluation form, or please pick up a flyer. It has the locations for the other 8 forums. The PC wants to check in with you all just before we send you home for the evening, and know that he's going to be here for the next 15 minutes if you have follow-up questions.
So look, real quickly, I know you're leaving real quickly. I'm happy to hear from you. Here's the central theme of what we heard tonight, and I'll be quick. We heard about relationships with the police, compassion, respect. A number of people brought those issues to me. We heard about distrust in the immigrant community. We heard about community collaboration with police, especially our youth. We heard about addressing corruption within the police department. We heard about officer morale. Thank you, Mr. Shardy, for bringing these issues to me. I heard from Mr. He talked about the war on drugs. I heard from Mr. Anthony Williams from East Baltimore. He shared a personal experience on excessive force of use. I heard from Dr. Glenda White from Howard Park, community policing, positive, authentic engagement with community. Police not getting out of their cars. We heard that several times tonight. Mr. Steve Ward from Grover Park talked about community policing, what techniques we have. Police getting to know the community better. I heard from Mr. Michael Johnson, police recruitment. Mr. Lloyd McGuire from Howard Park, relationship between the police and seniors. He attempted to file a police report with Internal Affairs. Mr. Walter Horton wanted to know about what are our objectives for the next 5 years. I heard from India, county resident, social skills and empathy of officers. Alex McClamey from Forest Park, pain of violence, wanted to know what we can do. I heard from John Dixon, a custodian here at Forest Park who met me in the bathroom. Thank you. I heard from Nicole Gatewood from Hillside Heights, talked about boosting officer morale. Ms. Judy Idefteen from Falstaff called the police about an assault, didn't receive a police report. We're going to look into that. Mr. Evan Gillum from Falstaff, concerned about the lack of trust between the immigrants and police. Sharon Jones talked to me about Residents Advisory Board at Baltimore Housing. We're going to partner with her. Charlene Batts Thomas, respect and dignity of residents of Baltimore. So we heard that several times tonight. Thank you, Mr. David Troy from Botten Hill. Meaningful reform, culture of corruption, gun violence strategies. William Washington from East Arlington, social value and compassion of officers. Says Chrysalie DeSanto, lack of relationships between police and immigrant residents, another central theme. Miranda Goodman from Garwin Oaks, deployment of officers, effectively address the issues and police recruitment, another central theme. Christina Flower, concerns of homelessness, outreach, the HOT team, thank you for that. Kim Trueheart from Howard Park, lack of confidence in the police department, wants to see more civilian oversight. Mr. Rufus Thompson talked about prostitutes. We're going to work with him to create a strategy to eradicate that. William Hanna, Parkland Heights, recruitment, Explorers program, which is on the way back to the Baltimore Police Department. Last but not least, Mario Chang talked about loitering, and Mr. Darren Spivey want to know what we can do about him helping us stop the violence. Thank you for all of that. I wanted to call every name of every person that came up here. Thank you for being out here tonight. Thank you for bringing me your concerns. I look forward to addressing these concerns and meeting with you tomorrow night.